excited.
Gotcha. Try not to overpower any.
No. Don't be self-conscious about it. I'll just adjust. All right. I think we're live.
Alright.
All right. Well, before we introduce everyone and talk about the film, I'm going to read a quick poem for everyone. Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile to serve your captives' need. To wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild, your new caught sullen peoples, half devilled and half child. Alright, that's good enough. I'm not going to read the whole thing. That's a little excerpt from The White Man's Burden, a classic poem from Rudyard Kipling. And of course, today's movie is The Man Who Would Be King, which is based on a novella by Kipling. So welcome to episode 38, Flooded Cinema, and I'm joined today by Jacaranda Plus and Aram.
Hello.
Hello.
Alright. Yeah, it's a good little poem. I think it's quite apt for today's film, and how if you don't live up to the white man's burden, things won't work out to you. It's a pretty good one. Anyway, The Man Who Would Be King, 1975, John Huston. It's a great little movie. What did you gentlemen think of it? Go ahead, Jack.
I mean, all I can say regarding the poem is so true. That's really it, yeah.
Yeah.
This movie is just so true in many, many ways. And then in some ways it's not.
Yes, there's
But,
one glaring thing which is, beyond absurd.
Poem seems pretty cool. It's a little vague as to how exactly it relates to the movie, but might have to read it. Might have to read it again. Actually, I'm not exactly 100% right now, but
That's okay.
I think the movie is actually pretty good. I like the movie quite a bit.
It is a good one.
If that was what you were asking.
Yeah. So I've seen it, I think 2 or 3 times now. I'm not sure if you guys had seen it before.
I'd seen it once before.
Okay.
It was my first time.
Oh, well, there we go. We're all different levels of experience with it. Yeah, it's pretty much, it's a adventure film, 1970s adventure film. It's sort of one of the last of a completely uncynical movie like this. Like, I can't think of... can you think of like an 80s movie that's sort of similar to this?
No doubt there is something, but
Yeah.
not off the top of my head. I can't think of one.
Yeah, because when I think of like bigger... So say for instance, what's that Terry Gilliam one? With the dwarves. What's it? Time Bandits.
Oh, Time Bandits.
Yeah. So when I think of something like another adventure film of the 80s, like Time Bandits has much more of that sarcastic, ironic thing going on, which became sort of a mainstay as time went on. But this is just sort of like, it's very, it's straightforward, I guess, in the fact that it's like, it is just about what it's presenting, which is very refreshing sort of movie to watch, for sure.
Actually, thinking about it, the last sort of just unironic adventure film would probably be the third Indiana Jones, because that's in '89.
Well, we'll put an asterisk next to the Indiana Jones films.
They're Christian. They affirm the existence of Christ.
I suppose that is true.
The third one literally has like the Holy Grail.
That is true.
Yeah, there wasn't. I remember a scene in Indiana Jones as well, where I think it was a character played by Sean Connery. He said something about. That's the third one, right? Yeah. He said specifically that about the funny guys down in Germany. is like these people are heathen. They do not practice true Christianity or something like that.
Mm.
So it's like it seems to have a Christian bent to it, but with obvious biases here and there. And yeah.
I mean, we could do obviously a whole episode on the sort of bizarre metaphysics in
Of
especially
Indiana Jones.
well of the theological implications of the first and third one. The second one there isn't really, because there's no Christian stuff in the second one really.
Yeah.
So I guess I like the second one. The second one's probably the last good one. No,
the third one is a good movie.
Third one is a good movie, but the second one is more similar to this for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I was looking up reviews of this film. I don't know if either of you guys had looked at reviews.
No, I don't care about reviews anymore.
Guess you will never believe what people said, like contemporary reviews said about this. They're like, "Oh, it's a great."
Did they say it was racist?
No, well, no one said that. Contemporary reviews, they didn't care about that. But what they did say was they thought Michael Caine's performance was bad. It's like, what?
That's funny.
Maybe by the standards of the time. Perhaps we just don't know how far we've fallen.
I think they said he was too overly sarcastic or something. Like he was, he took the tension out of the film. But I mean, I don't know. I think holding that opinion is something that's lost to time. Like, you know, it just reminds me of, even if you go back to the most ridiculous Tarantino knockoff late 90s movie, it's still 10 times better than most stuff that comes out today.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sort of, yeah. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. Alright, who wants to do the...
we should actually do a synopsis, I suppose.
Yeah. Who wants to give the overview?
So, I'll do it.
You do it. That's your job, since you...
That's my job on this.
You actually
That's
sort of, like, remember things like that when you watch a movie.
Alright, so... The entire film is bookended by the narrator, Rudyard Kipling, played by Christopher Plummer. Yes. That's obviously because it was based off his short story.
Yes, and in the short story, it is a similar structure, but the narrator is not explicitly Kipling. But
right, okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
And so he's approached by this mysterious man, this disheveled, worn-down creature, basically, who comes to him, and he's initially does not remember who he is at all. And then he slowly reveals to him that he knows this man, that this is just what's left of him since he's gone through his experiences. And so the context of it is just that it's almost jogging Rudyard Kipling's memory.
Yeah.
It's this man, Michael Caine's character, reminding him of everything that happened and dictating the story. And so then that's when you get back into it with Rudyard Kipling is the editor of this newspaper in the British Raj,
the Northern
in India.
Star.
Yeah, the Northern Star. That's it. And he comes upon these two British soldiers who are both Freemasons.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you get into the more spicy topic of discussion.
We'll circle back to the Freemason.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
And then because Rudyard Kipling himself is a Freemason, he feels obliged to help these people. And they initially attempt to bribe one of the remaining free princes of India who hasn't been subsumed into the British Empire. But that fails. And so then their next scheme is that they'll take British rifles into this fake country, Kafiristan.
Is that supposed to be referencing like Afghanistan, basically, I'm assuming?
I think it's meant to be just, whatever. Basically Afghanistan.
Generic, vague.
Afghanistan if they weren't Muslims, basically. Because obviously Kafiristan is reference to them being pagans. I think, what is it? They have as many idols as they do something, they say. They've got like the land of 34 idols, I think they call it.
Okay.
Because they just pray to whatever. They have no coherent or even remotely coherent religion.
Whatever rock is there.
Yeah. And so Michael Caine and Sean Connery's characters plan to take their guns and basically just village by village conquer this country and take all of its wealth for themselves. And they'll basically pretend that they're gods or kings or whatever.
Yeah.
And they sign a pact that they cannot drink alcohol or have sex until this thing is done.
Yeah. Yes. I thought that was an interesting detail.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that was like I think that's just like is that a Freemason thing or something, or is that like a standard business
It could be as
thing?
simple as just being for plot purposes. I mean, it's an easy way to get some drama in there.
Yeah.
You set up an oath that they'll be tested with.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it has any thematic basis with Freemasonry or anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. The entire concept of this like pseudo, like this generic sort of vague Oriental like goat fucker barbarian tribe. It's like out in the middle of nowhere. It's like it's funny because
just for YouTube's term of service, the man speaking right now is from the Middle East, so he can say that.
Yes. I do unspeakable things to the local goat population. Anyway, I mean, it's funny because this trope of like the nobility being sort of like these white men sort of going in, conquering, dominating, while the lower class being dark is interesting because that's sort of something that comes up when you look at the nobility in Greece and the nobility in India.
Yeah.
And just the concept of the Aryan invasions.
And you get it in Persia and even the Aztec Empire as well.
Yeah, and China.
The Aztec, yeah.
Yeah, the Aztecs nobility had lighter skin.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean,
same for China and pretty much the entire planet, to be honest.
There's an interesting reason for that. Just from like a non-racial point of view, unless you wanted to go further into the movie.
No, we can talk about whatever. It doesn't really bother me.
Fair enough. So there's this sort of general, through every culture, there's this preference towards paler skin, because it is seen as aristocratic. Because if you work outside, likelihood is that you're gonna get a tan.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're a noble, you're gonna have lighter skin.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that yeah.
That's true. That's true.
With the Aztecs, the suggestion is that the nobility mixed with perhaps Europeans at some point.
Yeah.
Because they're also capable of growing moustaches. Like they can grow facial hair, whereas the general population couldn't.
I think some genetic studies somewhere found a few skeletons in places in South and North America where they were dated to be quite old, and they seem to have more European ancestry, so West Eurasian ancestry. That would be some like vaguely those populations, because at that point it's not like a solid identifiable group. You can't say it's Germanic or whatever. But
then you're also getting into like Nephilim territory, where this is real. It's 100% real.
Yeah,
you're getting into like why the nobility is so much taller in a lot of these places. My priest was red pilling on this the other day.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, there's some.
He basically just told me, yeah, it's all real. Nephilim, everything.
Wow, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page now. I've got some more little juicy tidbits for you. So Houston originally approached Robert Redford and Paul Newman to play the two guys. which would have been
Interesting.
They would not have suited them at all. Newman instead, like he should have gotten. Newman actually suggested Kane and Connery.
What ethnicity was Robert Redford? Because I know Paul Newman's. You know, it is the ethnicity. What is Robert Redford's
Redford
ethnicity?
is I think he's a wasp. I'm assuming.
You never know. Sometimes you get secret one.
Oh no, he's Irish. He's like half Irish or half something or other. He's like Irish Scottish. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
But anyway, Kane and Connery.
Not-
Sorry,
not
I interrupted the lecture on haplogroups or whatever you guys are talking about.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, not to dwell on this subject particularly because I think it's not too related, but considering the entire weirdo Nephilim human population stuff, it's like you find in different places in the world these elongated skulls. It's either by head binding or what looks like
It's
a
aliens.
condition.
We've all seen Indiana Jones 4. We know it's aliens.
Yeah, it's aliens, bro. They evolved from another planet. Come on. No, but like it's something. It's a condition resembling craniosynostosis.
Yeah.
It's like this elongated. These elongated skulls. They have different like seams that their skull plates blend into each other. It's quite interesting, actually. Just looking into that rabbit hole. But other than that, yeah, I don't quite see that being too relevant to the story in the movie.
No, I just wanted to point out it was interesting that their first plot was to like kidnap a prince, and the movie sort of framed it as, oh, it's these two rogue actors doing it. It's like, well, I don't know about that. I don't know.
The British government would never. So.
Yeah.
No government ever would ever, you know.
Yeah. So I thought that was funny. Yeah, and then I love when they're escaping because obviously, in order to get around different places, you have to have a passport because it's the British Empire. They're very formal, so they dress up as like gypsies. And so you get Michael Caine and Sean Connery in brown face. And it's pretty good. And they're just like, yeah, we just act like these brown people, and no one can tell the difference. They're like a foot taller than everyone else.
I love these whimsical like irreverence in this movie. Like everything's taken lightly. It's really fun. Even when they're almost freezing to death and about to get crushed by like an avalanche.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, well, yeah, that's what life is like.
Yeah.
Like
it's an energy that is almost impossible to do today. That's why Top Gun Maverick is so bizarre to watch. Because you're sitting there and you know that this is a modern film that was shot like a year ago. But you're like, this is just unironically fun. Like it is a 80s, sort of 90s movie. It's so bizarre to experience.
I haven't seen that. I should watch that. I've heard a lot.
It's like a fun movie. It's like when a movie was fun. And I was watching, I was like, movies used to be like this. And it's still possible to make them.
That's true. If
But
Tom
just
Cruise
this
is
weird,
involved,
uncanny feeling, almost.
Yeah, because when you strap into watch like a modern movie, it's like, alright, I know what I'm in for. It's gonna be. There'll be a few like cute little moments. I'll have to put up with the annoying stuff, and then there'll be a lot of, I don't know, really flat, boring cinematography, and that's like your modern movies basically.
Or it'll be a Doomer movie, basically.
Yeah,
which is about the only good movie that people can make these days. Yeah. And then you get the occasional, like, say, an Emma or something like that occasionally breaks. And like, oh, that was actually
that was something
a good movie outside of those. Yeah.
It gets quite self-indulgent these days.
I wouldn't even call it self-indulgent. Like, I don't even understand. It's just like, why does the new Jurassic Park need to be 2.5 hours?
Don't
I'm not
remind me
gonna
that
lie.
movie exists.
I'm not gonna lie. I probably will enjoy that movie.
Well, yeah, it's big dinosaurs it's
Yeah, but
destroying stuff.
I dare
Yes.
But
you
the
to watch
first Jurassic
the
Park has more to it than that.
I dare you to watch the original Jurassic Park and then go watch that one and tell me what that experience is like. How long is the first Jurassic Park? Oh, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. All right, okay, fair enough. I guess if you're gonna do the modern sequel, it has to be a billion hours long.
Yeah, but like the first Jurassic Park has good
Wait,
characters.
is Samuel L. Jackson in the new Jurassic Park?
He better not be because Ray Arnold is dead. He died.
In which one?
The first one. Ellie Sattler. When Ellie Sattler goes to turn back on the generator, and I've seen this movie so many times. When she when she goes to fix the generator, and then she gets jump scared by the Velociraptor, and she's like backing away because she's scared as shit.
Yeah.
And then she bumps into the wall, and an arm falls down, and she thinks it's
that's
Ray there to
right.
help her.
Yes.
And then she
that's
pulls the
right.
arm off, and it's just the arm.
Yes, that's right. I remember that. That's good. That is good. B.D. Wong's in that. That movie is so good. The first one.
Yeah.
It's got cool action, great visual effects, great cinematography, great music, great directing, great characters, great acting. And it actually has, and it uses the monster elements for an interesting thematic purpose, which is basically just don't play God. You are not qualified to mess with stuff.
Now,
Don't do this.
The irony of this, of course, is that Michael Crichton wrote this, and he is some kind of freak of nature. Like, if you look at a picture of, all right, everyone at home, if you're listening, just look up the
Google Michael
Crichton, and then go into images. All right, okay, Michael Crichton height, and go into images. You will see he is double the height of Steven Spielberg. He's like a foot taller than Harrison Ford. He is insanely tall.
Oh yeah, what the hell?
He is 2 meters and 6 centimeters.
He is insanely tall. Like, he's an author. Why is he this tall? Like, what is he doing?
One of the first things I've seen is someone on Twitter saying Michael Crichton proved to the world that even the freakishly tall could write.
There's just every picture of him, like, next to other celebrities. So here's a picture of him next to Sean Connery and, what's his name? Nicolas Cage. He's like he's a foot and a half taller than Sean Connery. Like, this guy is a freak. He's writing about, it's sort of uncanny. He's writing about these genetic.
I mean, he was. He's
He's
dead.
6'9". He's 6'9", Michael Crichton. Damn.
Was. He's dead.
Well, so far as we know.
He's 2 meters tall. Kind of crazy. He didn't suffer from gigantism, did he?
No. He was just tall.
Yeah.
He was just tall. Like, he didn't have anything bizarrely disproportionate or anything. So
yeah,
he was just a really tall guy.
I think I'd read about a guy who was as tall as someone who would typically suffer from gigantism. Like, he was that tall, but he did not have the brain tumor associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so big, but his body was fully functional. He was freakishly strong. Like, he could he could, like,
he's a Nephilim.
yeah, it's like,
I'm only half joking.
who knows, man. But I think there was a story where he could tip over a rowboat by its length, and I think crack it in half.
What?
It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Damn.
Some stupid story like that. Might be embellished, who knows, but it sounds interesting. Either way, yeah, big dude, big fella.
Yeah. I don't remember how we got into this, but anyways, so they escape, well, not escape, but they basically leave British India, head north through the, what do you call them? The Hindu Kush. You know, those mountains up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, we have the snow scene, which is great. And we should mention, like, the character of Kipling within the story. Like, he's just sort of typical British, like, he's not extremely uptight, but he's more sort of a normal kind of what you would imagine a British sort of bureaucratic attaché type character to be.
He's like your typical, like slightly autistic Englishman, basically. Like, the intellectually minded sort of what's the word? High linguistic IQ type Englishman, basically.
Yeah. The actor actually looked a little bit like Kipling.
Christopher Plummer. Yeah.
Yeah, they went for.
It helps a lot with the big moustache.
Yeah, I think it's more that the moustache does it, but even
Christopher
so.
Plummer. No, Christopher Plummer's dead. He died last year. Rip.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And then they got Christopher Plummer to replace Kevin Spacey in that movie. Yeah.
Which is unironically a very good choice. Because before that, they had Kevin Spacey in bizarre old age makeup that looked awful.
Yeah, why didn't they just get someone old? I guess he just wanted to work with Kevin Spacey. Whoops. Well, as we were saying, they're in the snow, and it's a very good snow scene, is what I'll say. I'm not sure if there's much more to say, but it's like, very desperate sort of survival type scene.
There's some really nice matte paintings as well.
Yes. Where did they film it? This is a very disorganized episode. Morocco.
It's nice to have one that you just relax.
Yeah, that's true. Just kick back.
I think this is an appropriate movie to just have a,
Yeah.
That was the fun movie.
Yeah. It's not a movie where it's like building tension the whole time, or it's this, tight 90-minute script thing where everything's referring back to each other, or it feels like it is, a short story kind of thing. Like it's got room, everything's got room to breathe. But it doesn't. It doesn't feel inconsequential though. Still.
Yep.
Because you just get to know these characters. Like you're basically hanging out with these two friends for 2 hours, or however long the movie is, and you get to know them, you get to like them. They're acted, Michael Caine and Sean Connery. They're not. Let's be honest, they're not doing anything too far outside their wheelhouse, but it's just like perfectly written for them, and they've got a really great dynamic. It's really good.
It's like watching like I watched it first when I was a kid, The Road to El Dorado.
Yes, it is a very, very similar sort of vibe to that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same story with a few different twists, but it's like the two people, they go to some far-off land, and that far-off land has these people that don't know any better, and they think that they're gods.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
I just realized that Michael Caine's wife is Indian.
Yes, I realized that as well, because I was looking up who played Sean Connery's
she was there.
married to be, and then I found out Michael Caine and has been married to her since 1973. So good on him, approaching 50 years of marriage. Congratulations to Michael Caine. Married to Shakira Caine. What a name. Yeah, she seems like a lovely lady. We're all very happy for Michael Caine here. Yes, but I guess let's keep going with the plot. So they get through the Hindu Kush, and they arrive in Kafiristan, and they basically rock up to a village, and then everyone in the village is hostile to them. But then luckily there's a Gurkha at the village. And do you want to explain what a Gurkha is, Jack?
They're just like an elite infantry unit in the British Army that are made up of recruits from Nepal.
Yeah.
They're very famous for their hand-to-hand combat prowess.
Yeah. He was played by like a Pakistani or something there.
Yeah. Yeah, Nepalese and Pakistani people do not look particularly similar.
No. I mean, they got the most broad-faced looking Pakistani guy that I've seen, so he kind of looks slightly more Central Asian, I suppose. So I guess whatever, but I guess they didn't really care if this film and being accurate about.
No.
No, because it's just like.
No, I mean like, because they capture that dude from the opposing tribe.
Yeah.
And he's like some sub-Saharan African dude.
Yeah.
So
it is pretty funny. Yeah. Like it's just like, oh, we're just in the magical land of brown, like anonymous brown people. It's like when they go to a different village that's like would be a day's walk away. Suddenly everyone looks like Indian again, and then they go somewhere else and it's like they look Armenian or like Azerbaijani or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I mean, isn't it supposed to be like north of India, northwest of India?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I looked. So
roughly,
Kafiristan is actually a name of a province in Afghanistan.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
So it is basically just Afghanistan.
Yeah. I could understand some of what they were speaking because they were basically speaking whole sentences of Arabic sometimes.
Oh, okay.
So it really is like an amalgamation of it's really just like generic Oriental, like vague Oriental barbarian. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because people were sort of like that stereotype, but then when you got to the weird monastic cleric types, they were clearly something more Indian, but also sort of Egyptian, like it's like ancient Egyptian.
Yes.
Weird vibe.
Yes.
Which I'm sure there's like a Masonic
yes.
hints to it. So.
We'll keep going, and then when we get to the point where it's revealed, the whole masonry thing is sort of revealed, then we can go back and we'll discuss all of the Masonic stuff, I think. But we'll just keep going with the plot. So basically, they go to the first village. They say, we'll help you vanquish your enemies. They give him all the rifles. Yeah, and that's a very fun little scene where they shoot the bird out of the sky. And then, yeah, they're training.
They have
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the funniest parts of the movie is that because they go to the hetman, the big man of the village, which I just find funny that they actually used to be called big man.
Well, that's a good name.
It is a good name. And then he just says that the village upstream, when people from his village go out to drink, the village upstream pisses.
Yeah.
They pisses. And then this is jumping ahead a bit, but when they conquer that village, the hetman of that village says that the village upstream from them pisses when they go out to drink.
Yeah. What does he say? It's like, are you angels? And then they go, no, we're Englishmen, or something like that.
It's, are you gods? And then they say, I think it's, no, we're the next best thing, Englishmen.
Yeah.
I think they took that literally.
Yeah. Yeah, and at that point, they certainly haven't abandoned, I guess. Yeah, like neither of them have gone native, like so to speak.
No.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the most fun sequences in the film is them just like going around and conquering Afghanistan, basically. And I love them when they're teaching the tribespeople how to soldier. That's a great little bit as well, you know. It's almost like a montagey sequence in a way.
Turning them into Englishmen.
Yes.
I love the scene. The scene where what was it? The king, the lord, the whatever of the tribe.
The big man. The big man.
They were sitting with him, and he was offering them his daughters. I was like, no, thank you.
Oh yeah.
I was like, it's like, okay, but you don't need my daughter. you want one of my sons? It's like, I don't judge. It's like, man, these guys are disgusting. It's like these backwater like savages are like, from a modern sense, more tolerant than the Englishman. It's
Yeah.
kind of funny.
I thought it was that was like used to show their barbarism, and it was funny they're like playing soccer, like oh by Jove they're playing soccer or something, and, and then it's like the ball is their conquered enemy's head.
Yeah.
That's just silly. Yeah, so it's pretty much at this point that there's kind of a twist in this, or like a shift in the narrative when Sean Connery is shot with an arrow, but it doesn't injure him because it sort of hits his bandolier. But because he was either wearing, I don't know, he was wearing it in a way where people couldn't see it or something. I can't quite remember the exact logistics. They think that it's... go ahead.
It hit the like metal stud on his leather strap, I think.
Yes. So it he got hit with an arrow, but he didn't even bleed. He wasn't injured at all, and so all of the people basically thought he was supernatural, and then he's a god. And then well, the thing is, like, Sean Connery is sort of saying, well, we should tell them I'm not a god. And that's Michael Caine saying, oh, well, actually, maybe we should use this to our advantage. To, make it easier to conquer these people. Because they're more, they're going to be even more subservient to us if they think we're gods. And that's pretty much the shift in the narrative, and that's when they sort of begin abandoning, I suppose, their principles that they set out with.
Mm-hmm. And they start to drink their own Kool-Aid a bit.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it was premised on a prophecy that the sons of Sikander, which is Alexander the Great, which is it's interesting because saying X apparently in a lot of languages it's very difficult. Like in Arabic it's Skandar, in Turkish is Iskandar, in their language is Sikander. Interesting. So they thought that because Alexander, he conquered very, very far. The reason he didn't go off to the Pacific is because he he thought it was the edge of the world. Because the Pacific Ocean, I think it is the one south of Asia.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm tired. My geography is not with me.
No, that is not that is the Indian Ocean.
Indian Ocean.
The Pacific is east of China and Japan.
Yeah, east, south.
Okay, I mean, I don't quite remember how far he conquered. It was very far, but he was afraid of...
He got stopped in India.
Okay, so yeah, it was the Indian Ocean. But point is, he was afraid of hitting the edge of the Earth. So he could have gone all the way to China, even Japan.
But like he got to the Himalayas. So I'm remembering this now. And I think he actually wanted to keep going. Yeah. But it was his men who were still his original Macedonian troops that had not been back to Macedonia to see their families since they had left. They're like, we don't want to go beyond the Himalayas, to be honest. We're extremely wealthy, and now we would like to take this wealth back to our families and live with them. And then he threw a hissy fit and said, okay, we're turning back. And then he marched them through the Godrosian desert. Because he said, this will be quicker. And it's believed that he was purposely attempting to kill off his troops. Just to spite them for not going beyond the Himalayas.
Okay, yeah, I heard a story that he thought it was the edge. Yeah, I heard that story. I don't exactly know. Remember where I lived.
Well, I don't think any of us were there at the time, to be honest. So.
No.
Yeah, fair. But either way, they thought
not in any meaningful sense.
They thought that basically Alexander the Great would his sons would come back at some point, and rule over their.
We should just quickly mention that basically, the religion of Kafiristan, it's sort of like, it's basically a similar sort of decentralized paganism where they all sort of worship whatever, but then they've got a sort of semi-centralized religious authority where it's this big temple of monks which everyone pays their dues to. And so once Sean Connery starts saying he's a god and, you know, they've taken over half of the Kafiristan, the priests want to meet him, and that's when this or no, I think it's just before this, basically this prophecy is revealed to them.
Yeah, when they take over their first city, and he gets hit with the arrow, Billy the Fish, the Gurkha, he tells them the prophecy.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's interesting because what happens is that so these clerics, or whatever they are, like categorically they're monastic, cleric, whatever, these priests, they come to him, they want to speak to him, they go into this strange almost Egyptian looking ziggurat looking place. It's clad in symbols, a statue that looks a little sus. It looked. I made a joke that it looked like the Amogus. Anyway, so they take him up to the high priest, and apparently there's a symbol clad on their wall, or on top of their wall, or on their wall. I don't remember. That is exactly the same as like the main symbol in Freemasonry. I think it was the triangle, the square, and the
square and the sextant.
Yeah.
And
it's an eye, a square, and a compass.
It's a
compass being the two prongs, not the.
Then what's a sextant?
A sextant is a device for navigating by stars.
Oh, that's a sextant.
Well, a compass is still used in navigation for measuring distances across maps.
Clearly, I failed sex ed. Tough crowd.
So what happens is that this high priest, he doesn't seem to quite trust the Sean Connery character, so he takes a dagger and he like Sean Connery is restrained. They tear off his clothes. He's gonna right about to stab him in the chest.
Get your hands off me, you brown devils!
Get your hands off me.
I cannot start.
And they immediately see he has the necklace that is the same symbol that they have on their wall.
The craft!
And they're like,
yeah,
they're Masons.
Yeah.
Which is complete bullshit.
Yeah. I was just
it makes no sense at all.
Comment?
Well,
you guys commented that symbol.
Even if it was true that Freemasonry was practicing the old true religion, they would not have magically managed to create the original symbol used by that religion.
Yeah, it is very silly that
it's dumb on two levels. One, Freemasonry is dumb and isn't true. Two, why on earth would they magically have? Not only is it the same rough symbol, it is exactly the same symbol.
Yeah.
Proportions and everything, position of the eye, the compass, and the square.
Silly. It is silly.
Yeah.
You know, I think. I mean, there's a lot we can sort of talk about, I guess, with the problems of Freemasonry. But it's interesting that they have the, you know, it's that very common prophecy of a king will return to save us, and it will be a descendant of the king. It's sort of like that's, you know, you see that in lots of different religions, obviously, because it comes from when Noah, you know, basically established the Noahide, you know, covenant and like worship. And like over time things got corrupted in different places, and that's why you see in lots of different traditions, obviously, still like a flood story, a story similar to the Tower of Babel, and then you also got like a kind of promise of like someone coming to unite the world or destroy some sort of evil, etc., etc. And so it is a common trope in most religions. Um, yeah, and even just like a lot of cults, like I remember that, like people kept saying, oh, some particular Holy Roman Emperor was going to come back and help take back the Holy Land. Like a lot
I mean,
of
it's a somewhat common thing within cultural Greek Orthodoxy. Is
yeah,
Constantine the 11th, referring to him as the Marble Emperor,
yes,
because
as
they
well,
believe
yeah,
that because it's what happened was he went off to die in single combat when the Ottomans breached the walls, but his
yeah,
body was never found, and so it's this cultural
mm,
Greek thing that angels descended and turned him into marble and then
uh-huh.
stowed him beneath the gates of the city,
I mean, stranger things
and
have
that
happened, is all I'll say.
well, and that eventually he will be reawakened
Yeah,
when the reclamation of Constantinople
yeah,
happens, and he will personally lead the reclamation of the city.
yeah. I mean,
That's
Even though he apostatized to Catholicism, but
well, I
sort of.
mean, you know,
I don't want to insult,
no, no,
but
we're not going to
he
judge. We're
sort of
not going to judge
apostatized.
the state of Constantine the 11th soul. I
Yeah.
think he had a bit more
No,
pressure on him
I'm
than
not
us.
qualified. Yeah,
Like,
I'm not qualified.
oh, I'm addicted to my phone. This is so bad. Like, yeah. But yeah. So it's just sort of a trope. The return of a king, um, someone coming to put things right, etc. Yeah, it is just like ridiculous the claim that Masonry has that it's the original religion. It's I mean, obviously Christianity we make that same claim, but it's like
Mhm.
there's at least we have a living
yeah,
tradition going all the way back to the writing of the Old Testament, which is like pretty bloody old.
yeah.
Masonry, it's just like this completely made up gobbledygook of putting together documents. Like any occult or Gnostic document from any period in time, a Mason will say, "Oh no, they were Masons." It's like, well, what evidence do
That,
you have for that exactly?
that's the funny thing.
They can be
Entire
Masons because everything fits in because Masonry is,
everything.
sort of it's simultaneously everything and nothing. You
Yeah,
know.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about the sort of perennialist project of putting together um, these different archetypal truths that you can trace in different religions, and saying that there is this underlying uh, eternal primordial tradition underneath all of them.
yeah,
See, that might be true because we know
Well,
about the
it
flood
is
myths,
true.
etc.
It's
Yeah,
but it's Christianity.
yeah,
It's Orthodox
ex-
Christianity. It's not. You know.
yes, but the claim that they do extra to that
yeah,
is the claim that these religions are somehow the same. They can be
Yeah.
syncretized.
Yeah.
They can
yeah,
be. They can
In
behind.
order
yeah,
in order to get back to the one true religion, you have to take all world religions and then find the common aspects of them
yeah.
or something.
To find the
Mm,
average of them. It doesn't even make sense. Like if one religion says like is
Well, yeah,
dualistic,
that's
and
the
then
issue
another
is you get
religion
into contradictions.
is like even just monist, then that's two completely different systems.
mm.
Hmm.
And
Aristotle and Plato have distinct philosophies. You can't say they're the same because they were just both Greek philosophers.
Or even
That's
just simple as like contradicting views on, say, alcohol. It's
true.
like
or contradicting
the
views on prayer.
Christian view on alcohol or the Muslim view on alcohol.
Yeah,
Is it
Con-
a gift from God to
yeah,
make you merry with appropriate and responsible use, or is
yeah,
it evil?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's no
that's the interesting
average.
thing.
Only one of them can be correct. You can't average it out.
Yeah,
Aside from the moral teaching aspect that you just talked about, it's like even just differing accounts on the world's creation and so
Hmm.
on and so forth.
yeah,
These perennialists would, for example, say that everything maps onto uh, Plato's system or
yeah,
whomever's system.
yeah,
For example, like okay, so you have the Norse account for how the world was created. Some giant got pooped out from the enormous cow, and he licked the ice or whatever. And then it's like the Greek account is no, actually it was like this eternal primordial chaos that birthed like Erebus or whatever. It's like they'll just say, "Oh no, it's all just allegory to the great monad." It's like,
well,
you're just making stuff up. It's just vague. It's just nonsense.
The key, sort of the key.
And I can guarantee that.
Sorry, go.
So this is regarding neo-pagans.
Oh well.
I can guarantee you that
That's
the
even
majority
dumber
of
than
actual
Masons.
practicing pagans do not think of this great monad.
Yeah.
They unironically thought.
Yeah.
they unironically thought that it was birthed by this cow creature or whatever.
Yeah.
And that there was a literal world truth.
Yeah, I mean that's literally why Socrates was killed, was because he was like, clearly all this shit we believe is like doesn't make any sense. Like it's got to be something more abstract than that.
That's the funny thing. Yeah, you want to say that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, sort of the heart of perennialism is, obviously we can just say, oh, it's absurd to say that when two people, because what it boils down to is they basically say that when two people say completely different things, they can still be referring to the same, like, metaphysical, like, ideas or concepts. So they're basically, perennialism is sort of almost based on this idea that you cannot actually even say what you mean, like that word, like the relationship between words and the concepts they refer to is much more ambiguous or something than like we would necessarily think. And I think there is some obviously some ambiguity, and like we're not going to say like words have one meaning and that's their one meaning throughout history, etc. Obviously there is some nuance to it, but they take it too far to basically
historical
say
evolution and context.
Yeah, like words. They basically say words don't mean anything, effectively.
Like the one that comes to mind is the word angel in the Bible. Whether it's the heavenly being an angel, or is it just literally the word messenger?
Yeah,
and that's a human messenger.
Or if it's the particular type of angel that is the messenger, or if it's like the general angelic,
or if it's the angel of the Lord, which is Christ taking the appearance of an angel.
I have a couple of things to say about the entire perennialism thing, actually.
Go for it.
I just wanted to look back at the entire paganism point. The way that pagans speak of their gods is that they're basically almost casual, like superhuman beings. They live in high mountains. They live at the center of the earth, at the center of at a flat Earth, not in a Garth. No, but in like the world tree as at the center of the Earth, and the outskirts is where the giants live, and in the middle is humans, for example. And they believe this literally. And that's the interesting thing. It took like these sophisticated philosophers to abstract these gods as like beyond the human senses. I
was gonna say, I've heard like Father Deacon Ananias sort of talk about like how it was the shift from this mythos view of the world into a logos view of the world, where you assume things are ordered rather than like
rather than what your family and tribe told you. It's like no pagan nowadays believes that Thor actually had to cross a river, and that like what was it? There's this myth that Odin came and came in disguise and well, it's some funny myth. Like nobody believes that. Nobody actually believes that.
Yeah.
But about the entire perennialism,
at least not in the West. Obviously, there's
bizarre.
No, like the Indians are Hindus. A lot of they genuinely believe in their paganism.
Yeah, that's true. About the entire perennialism thing. Now, this is actually relevant, Flooded. I know you're a little tired of me talking.
I don't mind.
But
We've all gone on our own tangents. I mean, we've all
This,
had.
this stream is just
this is just anything.
the eclectic stream.
I think we've all gone off for like 10-minute tangents on our own pet theories about things so far, so it's okay. You can talk a bit more.
So, a famous perennialist perennialist arguably that I
Is this going to be
studied
Jung?
for a little bit.
Is this going to be
Yes,
Jung?
it's Carl Jung.
Oh
It's
my
it's
God.
actually it's actually interesting. This is because I had an argument with a Jungian about this.
Okay, go ahead.
So we're talking about how Carl Jung actually he contradicts actual Christianity. How I was basically saying that the way that Jung explains things, they do not come true to actual Christianity. He's making up his own stuff. And I was describing how Christianity basically has a metaphysical system that you have to work under in order to be a genuine Christian, and not just like someone who constructs his own worldview. Now, the way that they responded was, well, maybe if we analyze these myths and we dive deep into the mind, we can see these myths and stories for their significance in the psyche and the collective unconscious, and then maybe we can sort of approximate metaphysical truths through the study of consciousness. But this like a completely different, like he went completely off in another direction from me saying,
Yeah.
no, but in Christianity we believe that Christ actually rose from the dead.
Yeah.
And it's like as we were talking about earlier, these sort of perennialist or these Gnostic types, they will say, yeah, but the Bible is true, but in what way? It's actually in our way. It's like,
yeah.
I also spoke with another guy. He was this weirdo, like Hindu or also perennialist.
Yeah.
He was telling me that, yeah, I also believe in the Bible, but did it happen in literal physical reality? It's like,
Yes.
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 Or is it actually
That's-
just like a
that is why it's significant. Anyway, yeah. I'll
It's
just
like-
Christianity is both is taking place in like literal like space and time in the same way we perceive it.
Mhm.
But God is also beyond their comprehension as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing about these people. They will always want to. The way that they one up your religion is by trying to place your religion within the dialectic that
Yeah.
they have constructed.
Well, I think
So-
my biggest, like a big critique I have of these sort of, particularly psychoanalysis, is there's this assumption that oh well, we can't know what's happening in the external world, but we can trust 100% the internal world, and it's this idea that they don't believe that there was a massive flood and Noah was in the ark or whatever, but they believe like their own perception of that in their own consciousness. Like they have this assuredness of their consciousness just because of its immediacy.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're sort of more self-aware about it, it's like why is the internal world any more real or less real or reliable than the external world? No one ever really comes up with a good answer for that. So it's just like
That's a perfectly good question to ask someone who wholeheartedly believes in like this occult psychological thing.
like anyone that constantly psychologizes and says like, oh well, the only reason that you believe that is because X, Y, and Z about your psyche. It's like, well, but you believe that I believe that because of your psychology. Like, they just don't. They have these systems where they don't. They don't apply their own critique of other systems to their own system ever.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only to be fair to these people, in a more sophisticated sense, a sophisticated Jungian analyst, for example, would say that we're not talking about metaphysical reality necessarily. We're just talking about how these stories sort of affected the human psyche, how it's viewed by the human psyche from an unconscious level, etc., etc. So they're going to put it in a more casual sense, but in a more sociological sense, etc. But then you have these weirdos that go off kilter and say that try to sort of use the psychology thing as this hubristic way to sort of dismiss your beliefs. It's like, oh, you just believe that because you have a complex, bro.
Yeah.
You have a complex. And what is also what was I about to say about that? I had something specific to say. I actually sort of forgot about it. What did you want to say? Go ahead.
Is there anything more we want to say about these sort of topics before we move back into actually talking about the movie? I think we've pretty. I mean, if you've got something else, go for it. I don't mind, but
I mean, it might come back to me. We might steer it back
okay.
a little bit.
But yeah, basically, it is very silly that the Ghanis are practicing like 18th century Freemasonry, like Western European Freemasonry.
It would have been next level comedic if if the priests had come out wearing the blue sashes and the aprons and the leopard skin fez.
Man,
they
had
the tact not to do that at least.
Yeah. I wonder what it was like in the book. I don't know, but no, I love yeah, and then obviously it goes to Sean Connery's head at that point that he's a god. And they find out they have all this gold, and so they decide, oh well, let's take this gold, go back to London, and live the lives that we deserve. But Sean Connery at this point sort of has decided, oh no, I'm going to stay and be a benevolent king. And Michael Caine's like, why would you do this and whatnot. I don't know. What else happens, Jack?
He wants to get married.
Oh yes, and then they use I guess Michael Caine just wanted to have his wife be on set, so he just decided, you can use Mr. Wayne, you can use my wife. No, that was pretty bad, Michael Caine. John Huston. John Huston.
You've tried, okay? You had to go.
John Huston.
It just didn't work out.
John Huston. Oh, that was a bit better. John Huston. Oh, you should use my wife, Shakira.
You could use my wife.
That was a bit closer.
Can you do a John Huston?
I cannot do a John Huston. I can do a horrible Michael Caine and a horrible
your Sean Connery is possible.
My Sean Connery, I can say. What I have to do is I have to say Shrek and not start, and then I can get into it. Shrek and not start. We have to bring civilization to Kafiristan. Goes a little bit overboard at times, but we're getting there.
There was this kind of funny, notable moment where, so, the Sean Connery character had I've forgotten their names at this point. I'm just gonna call them by the actors.
It's Peachy and Trevor.
Yeah.
I don't know who is who. We're gonna say John Connery.
Peachy is okay. What? Carry on, Aram.
All right. There is this funny moment where they really went full blown with the entire God King thing, and he told the Michael Caine characters like, "You can't be seen beside me not bowing." It's like it breaks the act.
Yeah.
It's like it's just a slightly contrived way to like say he's buying it. He's like it's going to his head, but they could have just as easily like. We had talked about that while watching the movie. They could have just as easily said, "Oh yeah, he's like a lesser like angelic being. He doesn't need to bow to me. He's like he's also an Englishman. He's just not Sikander.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to bow."
He's an Englishman. He's an angelic being.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
yeah. I actually remember what I wanted to say, but it's so off off topic at this point that we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
All right, Iron Duke has made a clarification in the live chat. The story is set beyond Afghanistan in Central Asia, and I said according to Wikipedia, Kafiristan is in Afghanistan, and then Iron Duke has said Wikipedia is wrong.
He is correct. Wikipedia is often wrong.
Yes.
Dang. I thought it was the most accurate source for everything.
Yeah, well, sadly, we've been duped again. And Iron Duke has also let us know he can do a good Michael Caine. Mr. White.
Well, tell him to save it. Tell him to save it for the Martian Commander episode.
Yeah, even
he
though
can go
Michael
through
Caine's
all of
not in
his.
that, yeah.
He can do all of his impressions.
There's no
get
one with a
practicing,
good
Iron
voice
Duke.
in that movie, unfortunately.
in Martian Commander.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no one with an impersonation worthy voice.
No. There's like Nicolas Cage is not in it. I was working on my Nicolas Cage for a while. I'm not very good at it. I basically imitate Jay Dyer doing a Nicolas Cage impersonation. So that shows you how good I am with them.
I don't quite remember how he even sounds like. It's like
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Just like speak quietly and sort of extend your words.
The Declaration of Independence.
Yes,
I can do an excellent Marge Simpson impression.
Oh,
you can, and I don't want to hear it.
Don't do it. It's so horrible.
It's accurate, but absolutely.
It is horrible. A good. I will say this much: it is accurate, but it's annoying.
It is accurate. However, it is just slightly out of whack with the actual one.
Homie.
That becomes annoying.
Homie.
It doubles as the Marge Simpson and also the Goblin Zeppelin in Warcraft 3. Yeah. If you know that voice, then you'll get it.
No, I don't. I go outside. I don't know what that sounds like.
I sit at home.
Ouch, man, that hurts. That hurt, Jacaranda.
Elvis Presley leaving Las Vegas.
That just sounds like less Scottish Sean Connery.
Well, that's close. We have someone else in the chat talking about John Huston may have been part of the Black Dahlia thing. I'm not sure about that.
I've heard Dyer talk about the Black Dahlia before.
Yeah,
but I've never looked into what that actually is.
All I'll say is the fact that John Huston apparently wanted to make this movie for 20 years, and this movie is all about like how good Freemasonry is.
And the fact that John Huston played a pedophilic parent in a Roman Polanski film is suspicious.
Alright, Sussy Socks is being annoyed that I'm not referring to him by name as Sussy Socks. You're welcome, Sussy Socks. You're gonna ruin my street cred. Now, what are we up to?
Yeah.
Wait. Is John Huston the one that was at the Battle of Midway?
I don't know.
So,
what did we get up to?
we're talking about we were just about talking about how.
Oh yeah, that they could have just come up with another lie, but they decided to. Yeah, I guess they kept it simple, which is fair enough.
Yeah, we're up to like when he's proper king and the entire thing going on. Yeah. Excuse me. I'm about to sneeze.
Yes, Iron Duke. We have discussed that it was some Indian or Pakistan. Was he Indian? Well, he may have been Indian, but anyway, they do not get a Gurkha. Punjabi. They do not get a Nepalese actor to play a Gurkha, which they could very easily have done.
What do you mean? The British don't have access to Gurkhas? What are you talking about? They don't
Like,
have access to Nepal.
it's not like the guy had to be some crazy good actor. They could have just gotten a random Nepalese guy. I guess they just didn't. John Huston just like did not care. I
They
mean,
wanted a good actor.
he originally wanted Paul Newman and Robert Redford to play
Yeah,
their parts, so I
the
don't think he
British
was too
soldiers.
cared about the ethnicities of everyone involved. um, but yes, so Sean Connery, it goes to his head a little bit, the whole thing, and he decides to marry. And at that point, he's effectively sort of decided to violate the oath they make, which is to not take a woman the whole time they're in Kafiristan.
Mhm.
And it's sort of with that violation of that oath is sort of the last straw, I guess, between in their relationship, and also it shows he's sort of gone completely native and he's lost touch with his what their goal was in being an Englishman. um and I think the movie is sort of also um it sort of functions as kind of a general broad metaphor of how like the British people did colonialism, and it frames it obviously as a good thing, like, oh yeah, we went and brought civilization to savages, and then
Sort of, but you also get the hubris, though, is obviously commented on.
yes, and then he sort of says, but it can go too far, is sort of at the end, I think. Like, it's almost like that's what the Spanish did, or something, I can imagine is what he would be thinking. Kipling, that is.
I mean, Kipling was obviously, you read the poem at the beginning. He was obviously very much in favor of the idea
Yes.
of manifest destiny. I
Yes.
don't know if Aram, if you're familiar with this concept.
Manifest Destiny. I've heard of it. I don't quite know
Well,
the concept.
it was common in
America.
the European empires and very, very common with the Anglo sphere.
Mm.
This idea that white people had a duty to spread civilization. It was sort of this. It could be seen as racist, but it was sort of racist in a sort of condescending, caring way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's meant to be like it's racist, but it's meant to be sort of
It's
we're here
not.
to help you
Yeah.
type.
Yeah. It's not. We're
You're
here.
dumb.
Yeah.
You don't know how to do things, but we'd like to help you with that.
Yeah.
That's
It,
basically the idea.
Yeah. I mean,
it reminds me of
I was just gonna say, like, to be honest, a lot, the British Empire, they
There,
could have set
there,
it up
there are worse
to.
forms of racism.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Well, I mean, like, people could say, oh, they stole all their resources, and it's like,
That's not even true.
no.
Like when you actually crunch the numbers, the British Empire lost money.
Yeah.
It it was not run at a surplus.
the entire Manifest Destiny thing. Was it Oswald Spengler that said that coined the term Faustian spirit?
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
I mean, yeah.
The concept of the Faustian
They're
spirit.
sort of intertied, yeah.
Yeah, the concept of the Faustian spirit of the like the European people is like this tendency to go out there and
It's
and
not
just, like,
necessarily that.
conquer.
It's more technically, it's like wanting to remove boundaries. So
Okay.
there's obviously the external version of that, where it's like, creating these massive empires, etc., and like having more and more free trade and different concepts like that. But there's also the internal way it works in like philosophy and psychology, etc.
Interesting.
And like
Because
you can
that
even see it
reminds me
in certain arts, or if you ever read like James Joyce, that's a good example of like internal Faustianism, where it's like this extreme stream of consciousness style of writing, and it's like it can be very difficult to understand kind of thing. So anyway, I've just read a bit of Spengler, so to be more technically correct, that's the
That's
way
fair.
you sort of think about it. But yes, in terms of
So
empires, that is
you're
part of it. Yeah.
this is actually a more useful concept, the concept of removing inhibition and removing boundary, because that reminds me of, I guess they're also intertwined, the concept of the Overman by Nietzsche, uh,
Yeah.
because the Overman transcends human values. He,
Mhm.
it's called the process of the transvaluation of values.
Well, he sort of saw
Uh,
where things were going in terms of Well, you have
Yeah.
the Reformation when they say, well, all we can take for granted is the Bible, and then you have the Enlightenment where they say, well, no, actually, all we can take for granted is our reason,
Senses.
etc. And then, our senses. And then at a certain point, obviously, Hume and whoever else basically says, well, we can't even know our senses. And then sort of you get Nietzsche sort of saying, well, this is the end. That's what's going to happen at the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me to see that in sort of like the European, almost neo-pagan way of looking at it, because I think Nietzsche I don't remember, it's been a while, but I think Nietzsche specifically talks about Germanic tribes, how they could go into a place, how, like, for example, the Vikings could go into a place, destroy it, burn it down, violate the women, and kill the men, and then they'd have gone home with a clean conscience, and they would have gotten their fill of loot, and they would have basically had this like master morality, but they were stupid. They were not as constructive as the Romans, but the Romans themselves were this slightly more slavish, more decadent people that got stuff done, but they didn't do it in this like vigorous way, etc., etc. So it's all this in this dialectic that fights with itself.
Yeah.
And it sort of makes sense with. It's interesting. It's very interesting to me to see these sort of this sort of like history of ideas thing to look at it, lens to look at it, because a lot of people note how. Because I noted at the beginning that this movie sort of shows these white Englishmen going to this backwater tribe of dark, strange people who are savage and primitive, and conquering them and becoming their king, their aristocracy. That in itself reminds me of a lot of the way that people talk about the Proto-Indo-Europeans, the Indo-Europeans in general, that they worshipped masculine deities. Masculine deities of the sky, while the pre-Indo-Europeans, the Proto-Europeans, I guess, they worshipped earth goddesses, for example.
Yeah.
Is this Bap's Longhouse stuff?
Basically.
I actually do not know if
it's
Bap
a similar.
talks about
It's a very similar sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of a dialectical reading of it.
Yeah.
I guess that there's some truth to it, but
yeah.
I think
So
the issue is the framing of this idea of freedom, or what it is to be vigorous or active, is like, obviously as Christians we'd have a very different understanding of what freedom is, particularly.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So you have this
concept of freedom is like being free from sin and temptation and vices and stuff like that.
Yeah, we have a freedom from, like, we have a concept of freedom from something, as opposed to the freedom to do something.
Yeah,
it's a different concept of freedom. That's an interesting conversation in itself, but that dialectic sort of, you can trace it back to that idea of this sort of like these Aryans who were of fair complexion, tall, warlike. They worshipped masculine gods. They have
you been watching Thulian Perspective or something again?
Thulian Perspective? No, that's the funny thing. Varg believes that
Varg is a feminist.
Varg does not believe that myth. He believes
Varg hates Christianity because he thinks it's patriarchal. And he thinks it subjugates women.
Yeah. Varg thinks that the original Europeans dwelled within the caves of Europe as Neanderthals. That is the ethnogenesis of Europe, Neanderthals. And he like deifies autism, because autism is a trait that you can trace a lot of similarities to the genetics of Neanderthals, like in remnants of human beings. Varg is a weirdo in terms of paganism. It's like, he's very funny. I actually like Varg, but for different reasons.
That reminds me.
I will say this: Varg should not have gone to prison. That was obviously self-defense, by the way. When you
Bro.
actually look in that comments, it was obviously trying to kill him, and he just
Uh,
defended. He
yeah.
preemptively struck.
And
He knew the communists was trying to kill him. He
all
probably
I'm gonna
was.
say is Euronymous deserved it.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that video I sent of the guy like it was like
He
apparently
should have
two
gone. He should have gone to jail for burning that church down there.
yeah.
Yes,
But
I mean he was
That was
involved.
like an ancient stave church, and he burnt it.
Yeah.
I mean, did he even do that or did he just cop to doing it?
He was involved in the group that did it. He doesn't confirm either way, but he says, "Yeah, that church deserved to be burned down." That's what he says. It's like we don't know, but it's attributed to him. So, we attribute that crime with him because he's the most famous like early black metal Norwegian scene guy.
Yeah. I don't remember how we got onto this topic.
This entire stream is just wild porn.
I mean, we're talking about like how the Aryan invasion and how you're talking about how that. You've been watching through the perspective and how yeah.
Yeah, Iron Duke here has said failing to subjugate women is always a mistake. True. And Fabio has jumped in. Much love from Brazil. Much love to you, Fabio.
Much love, Fabio.
Much love, Fabio, the Brazilian Polish Orthodox. Crazy thing you do. It's so weird that the Poles got to Brazil. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, that's like
It's the
something
most random thing ever.
It's something like from a Paradox game. You wouldn't think it was real. Yes, of course, Iron Duke. We love women. We're not.
We do love women.
We love women when they're women. All right. Oh, there was one thing I did want to mention was the fact that at a certain point, Sean Connery, like proclaim his statements he said about different things, was he would say Selah, which is obviously from like the Psalms, and that was something like David said as like a proclamation. So I thought that was interesting. He was sort of supposedly supposed to be like Alexander, but he was almost more styling himself after King David.
Solomon or King David, did you say?
Well, I guess, Selah is, the Psalms are written by David, so. But yeah, he's more styling himself as a Jew, like, David or Solomon rather than Alexander.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Interesting you say that, because I'm pretty sure the classical Freemasonic view is that their order was
yes, of course.
They find their genesis in Solomon.
Yes, I've heard some.
I've heard conflicting things about this over what the actual religion of Freemasonry is. I've heard the Solomon stuff, and then I've heard the Nimrod side of it.
Who knows, dude?
Yeah,
because
I think it depends
Nimrod
on
being
the
one who was building the Tower of Babel.
Yeah,
and is the biblical archetype for tyranny.
Yeah,
and then and him building the Tower of Babel would explain their interest in globalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to say. I think they definitely do claim.
And it would explain the architecture stuff, because he was obviously a mason. Like he built stuff.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I've always heard Solomon, but who knows with these people?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not that familiar with Freemasonry beyond their involvement in like 18th century politics and stuff like that. So I'm not sure what their claims about their origins are, to be honest. But certainly they are dubious, highly dubious. Well, I mean, I guess if they couldn't. I mean, obviously they couldn't have. Anyway, I don't know. They're silly, the old Freemasons. We can agree on that much. We've gone through all my notes actually, so I don't have anything else really to say. So basically the ending it doesn't work. It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out for them.
Yeah.
No, because when he tries to get married, and then she's sort of almost hypnotized by these people, like they bring her into this like bizarre catatonic state, and then when they go to get married, she's confused, she's scared. I think they convince her that she's going to die or something.
Yeah, because they think
when she makes love to him because he's a god.
Yeah. There is some
And so
implication like that, yeah.
she scratches him, and obviously that makes him bleed.
Oh, bitch, scratch me!
And gods can't bleed
Yeah.
for some reason.
Yeah.
And so that's when they know that he's just a man.
Yes.
Didn't she bite him? Like she bit a
I
chunk
thought
of...
it was a scratch. It doesn't.
She may have done both, but I think the blood is
She
produced from
attacked
a
him in
scratch,
some
yeah.
way, and he ended up
Well,
bleeding.
bitch, scratch me! Is that what he
Yeah,
says?
I think he says. What did she say? Bit me.
Who knows?
Something.
She...
He ends up bleeding anyway.
Yeah. And they realize he's...
And that's when Sean Connery and Michael Caine have to make a run for it.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I'm thinking?
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, I'm glad we didn't do a double feature, because it'd be
Yeah.
a 3-hour episode. I think we're all just
This
like...
movie just brings out bizarre tangents.
Yeah, it's like the movie in and of itself, functionally, is very straightforward, but it's like, there's so many interesting things it just touches on.
They relate back to it, yeah.
Yeah, like
I think it's probably something you'd get with anything relating to esotericism in any way.
I mean, that's deliberately how I guess it works. Is it's sort of subtle, but yeah. I did want to mention, I find it interesting that the movie itself comes out in 75, because at that point, like, what was the British Empire? Like, the Falklands?
The Falkland Islands.
I mean, I'm not familiar with the history of the giving
Iron
back
Duke.
everything.
Iron
Iron Duke will be listening to this, screaming, telling me in 1975. But well, they had lost India certainly at that point.
Yeah.
Which was, kind of the irony of this film coming out then, and he'd wanted to do it, in the 50s and 60s. The film before. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if they could have made it during the height of like the Gandhi stuff, but who knows?
Well, what was it? They gave India back in 54.
Was it 54?
I think so. Yeah. Oh, was it? No, it was 47. Sorry. I think it was 47.
Okay. Britain still has 14 overseas territories. Kipling was brilliant. Kipling is an amazing writer. He's a great poet.
Yeah.
I agree with lots of things he says about certainly British imperialism, particularly. But I disagree with him being like I don't like Masons. As an Orthodox Christian,
we are
like
duty
Masons.
bound not to like them.
Yeah, like we're not allowed to. You can't be a Mason. You can't.
But we also have to draw a distinction between people who actually are aware of what they do and people who just like the communal sort of like. I don't think.
I mean, that's precisely how occult systems work.
An evil man by any means. He just a dude that was involved in.
I don't think he was
bizarre occultism.
Because there was a distinction. I hate when people point this out because it's kind of like a bit of a cop out a little bit, but we will point it out. There was a distinction between Anglo Freemasonry and Continental Freemasonry, insofar as the fraction of there were a lot of occult people in Anglo
Freemasonry. Doesn't that require you to practice another religion?
I'm not sure about that, but you certainly on the continent there was a lot more obviously anarchists and communists or whatever nascent communists in the 18th century involved.
And I mean, for instance, Tsar Peter the Great was a nominal Freemason. I mean, he was one, but he was generally, when you look at his life, he was relatively pious Orthodox.
Peter the Great.
When you actually look at it, it's actually not as bad as
I think
the popular conception of him would suggest.
Well, it depends on who. What do you mean? Like a lot of Orthodox do not like Peter the Great.
I know. That's what I mean. When I mean
by popular. Oh, you mean by? Oh, okay. Iron Duke's saying Anglo Freemason is pretty mild compared to France, Italy. I agree, insofar as Anglos do not care about metaphysics, typically. So it's just to them, it's just like, I'll put on these pants, I suppose. Like,
I like
whatever else.
they like. I think a lot of what appeals to a lot of Anglos is the drinking.
Mm.
Because I know, like, even being Tasmanian, like one of my granduncles was a Freemason, and he just liked to drink alcohol.
Yeah, no,
That was it. That's why he was a Freemason.
yeah, that's fair enough. Um, I'm sure if someone knows more about Freemasonry, they're gonna listen to this stream and they're just gonna they're gonna be
I know.
actually the whole time.
Don't send it to Brother Augustine because he was a
Uh-oh.
Freemason.
I know some people. One of them was a 33rd degree,
Mm-hmm.
so high up there.
Hmm.
He still believes that the Freemasons are Christian, even after going through all the rituals. So he
Well, I
saw the
mean,
symbols and everything. That's the thing, right?
does he mean that the order itself is Christian, or the people who practice it believe
No,
it?
he believes that they're just a Christian club,
Okay.
Christian fraternity.
Well, he's
So
literally
it's like,
very wrong. So
yes, and that's the thing. Even it really is a it really is a sect of people who are in the know and who are not.
yeah,
It really
I
is not
mean,
a set of revelation. It's
no,
always like
no, it. I mean, that's precisely how occult organizations work. Is that um, if anything, they like most people, to think it's just a drinking club or it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, that's how
it's just self help. It's
Scientology
just
works
self
as
help.
well.
Yeah, like Scientology, like the
Scientology, I
Anton.
think you have to pay a certain amount for them to
Yeah.
actually tell you what it is.
Or I mean, even Anton LaVey's Satanic Church, where he says we don't actually believe in Satan. It's just like self help
Yeah.
principles. And it's like, well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that, Chief. That's precisely how occult
Yeah, if
groups
a
work.
cult were out there saying, "Yeah, we're evil occultists,"
Yeah.
you wouldn't get many people joining the cult.
No. So.
nowadays. Who knows?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah, true. Today you would get a decent amount of people.
But no. I mean, I'm not here to judge anyone that becomes a Freemason and they don't know what it's about, because like the education about it or knowing about it, you could pretty much only ever find out about it in like the last 10, 15 years with the internet. So, um,
I mean, not only that, but if you're mentioning Kipling specifically, just given the time in which he existed,
yeah, everyone was a
would.
Mason.
Not only that, but I mean, compared to modern day people, even him being a Mason, he'll be more Christian
That's
than
true.
a lot of people these days. I mean,
As far as that's true. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else we want to talk about? I like I think
I know the British Empire was kind of swag.
that's
That's what I
true.
was saying.
That's true. That
Who?
is true.
The British Empire was kind of swag.
Yeah.
I don't like
Not
the
perfect,
helmets.
but it was kind of
No,
swag.
I don't like the helmets. I'm sorry.
That's
Oh,
You guys
this
are gonna have to
dude.
I'll let you
This,
have
yeah,
that
that's how
opinion.
I.
I'll let you have that.
No,
opinion.
we gave you the honorary white card. You know,
No,
you're
no,
Middle
no,
East,
no,
you
no,
know,
no, no, no,
that
no,
we
no.
gotta we
For
gotta
the
get rid of it.
purposes
You
of
don't
this
have pit
show,
helmets.
he is Brack. He's
black?
Bra.
I am.
Right? He gets us
100.
the we're not racist card, because he's our black friend.
I am
Yeah.
100% Sumerian Gilgamesh. One third.
Yeah.
1/3 deity, and the other 2/3 100% Sumerian.
One
Don't worry.
third
I'm
garbage.
from Agartha, actually.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
need to be Aryan. That's not.
Well, okay. Here's the real question: can people from Agartha say the N word?
I mean,
alright, don't answer
they-
it. Okay, move on. We're moving on.
listen.
No,
They-
no, no,
they-
no,
they live under a black-
Well,
They live under a
If-
black sun. What are you gonna do?
if Agathans can say the N word, and Aram isn't Agathan, then the only way to prove that would for him to say it on the show.
Yeah, don't say it. Let's just be chill.
Norwegian.
Yeah.
Yeah, Norwegian. That's the N word. I suppose that is the N word for a Swede.
Yeah, that's true.
Norwegians. Ugh.
Norwegian. Oh man.
Yeah, no, we're all relatively pro the British Empire. I just wish they were Orthodox, or like at least more explicitly Christian.
I have no opinion. Except
And
I
less
think
usurious.
Well, that's, and you also have to distinguish it between the British people and some of the people that infiltrated the
Yes,
Empire.
of course, yeah.
hmm,
No.
It's like the British
another
people's swag.
another
Yeah.
esoteric cult. Not gonna talk about that.
Okay. Iron Duke is giving us
Yeah,
a warning.
there's one that we don't touch on.
Yeah, careful, gents.
No.
I lost a stream for hate speech the other week, and I have no idea what I said. Yeah, we've been a little bit dicey today. Obviously, it's impossible with this movie, really, to be fully optical, just because of the nature of the film.
And it's impossible to figure out what you can and can't say anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when I was on Academic Agent stream, and I quoted Mel Gibson talking about, and then nothing happened to that stream. It was fine. But then you could think you've gone through a perfectly normal stream, and they find
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Which stream did you lose?
No, it wasn't me. It was Iron Duke in the chat. He's a friend of the show.
Gotcha.
I've appeared on his show a couple times.
Yeah, that's man.
Yeah.
I hope nothing like that happens.
I think the viewer base of this show is small enough that I don't think we'll have too many issues unless something gets picked up by the algorithm. But I don't think we said, other than saying Freemason about 200 times, I don't think. I'm not sure if that triggers it anymore or not. Who knows? I don't think the Freemasons are running YouTube, to be honest. So I think we'll be safe. Yeah.
It's worse. It's the intersectionalists.
Yes. I think we've pretty much said everything we want to say about the movie. Like, we don't need to necessarily go into every detail of the plot.
We'll leave the ending for.
We'll leave the last 10 minutes.
Viewers.
Yeah, for the viewers.
Yeah. I could rant about Varg for another half hour, but
yeah. No, well, look,
you
know
can
what?
do that off stream. We will indulge you
Aram,
off stream.
It is completely free to start a YouTube channel, so you're more than welcome to do that on your own channel.
Just record
you've had
your
more than enough
wild
ranting time
ramble.
on my show.
I know.
We've talked
Hey,
I swear we've done 20 minutes of actually talking about the movie. It's an hour and 40-minute episode. I don't mind though. I think it's good. It's just
No, it's fun. It's fun.
I think when we do the double feature, sometimes it is a bit. You have to be a bit pacey because like otherwise the episodes would be 3 hours long each episode.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
When you've got one movie, you can afford to be a bit more.
Yeah.
I like the format of the double feature too much to like completely abandon it. But I think for when we do a special like the White History Month, I think it's probably good to do single movies.
If this was a double feature, I would definitely restrain myself much more. I think.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed both formats so far. I really think it's cool either way.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll just keep it mixed up. Maybe I'll do some single, depending on the movie. I think certainly all the movies we've picked for this White History Month, there's too much to talk about to do double features, unless we just did some throwaway movie. So I'm pretty happy. We've got 2 more episodes of this White History Month. So we're going to bleed into July a little bit, but I don't think anyone is going to call me out for that. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about the movie? Or
Pith helmets are cool.
I have one thing to say. Hold on. I need to just pull up the. Check out in Google the traditional territorial subdivision of the county of Sussex in England.
Oh, not this. Your obsession with this.
Go look that up.
No, I know what it is, Aram. It's a word you can't say on this stream.
I know.
That's
why I didn't say.
He didn't say it. He told people to go look it up. Yeah, Iron Duke said Master Commander needs 2 hours. I'm sure we will do 2 hours on that movie. I'm looking forward
That episode is just gonna be us prompting the Iron Duke, and then just going and just letting him do all the content for us.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I liked. That's why I love having two guests on.
It's a chill
Because I never
stream.
have to do any work. I just come in occasionally with the pithy remark, and I keep my aloof persona up. um, yeah, I think we're pretty much done. I think we're done. All right.
Yeah,
We're done.
Good night
We're done.
to everyone in Australia, and good morning to people in places I don't care about. I hope everyone. Oh no, well, good morning to Fabio in Brazil, I should say.
Yeah.
We love Brasilia.
Brasilia.
Yeah.
go.
All right. Let's end this. Let's end this now. Good night.
Goodbye. Good night, sirs.
Cheers.